Hello! In this video, we're going to complete the small templates project that we've been working on in Flask. And the thing that remains to be done is to create our second template. So our first templates are individual pages for each president, such as this. And in this finished online version of the project, whenever we click any president, we go to that detail page, and this page is handled by one single template. But this list of all the presidents is a second separate template that we haven't made yet. And it's got something a little bit tricky, just new, something you haven't seen before. It has a new Jinja directive that's going to build the list for us. So you recognize this as an unordered list in HTML. We're going to build it by getting dictionaries out of our list of all the presidents. So without further ado, so this is the template we already have, and to make things sort of quick and easy, I'm going to save as, and it has to be in the templates directory, and I'm going to name it index.html. So it is not going to need its title fed in from the Flask app because there's only one version of this page. So the title can be President's Index. You know, the title is what shows up in the browser tab. This remains the same because I'm using the same style sheet as before. Of course, everything at the top of the document in the head stays the same. The container stays the same. That's from the CSS that I wrote. This will be gone. This will be called something like US Presidents. And we will not have an image. And we will not have any of these things, right? None of these paragraphs. So what are we going to have? We have a container, and inside it we have a heading that says US Presidents. And what else do we have on the finished page? Just a paragraph that says click any president's name. So I'm going to take that and copy it. I'm going to paste that right here, and I'm going to surround it in a pair of P tags to make it a paragraph. Then after that, we have a list and an HTML unordered list. That is a bulleted list, is inside a UL element for unordered list. And then each item inside it is going to be in between a pair of LI tags for list item. Just saying that in case anybody watching is not up on their HTML elements. What we need is all 45 presidents in here. Now, you know we're not going to write them by hand, okay? But let me just save that and look at what we have already in President's Pie. This is our app. And in our app, we were testing these presidents. So let me take those out. We won't be testing them that way anymore. So I'm going to remove them. And I'm going to go in here and I'm going to paste them here like this, and then I'm going to replace the first part with an LI tag. So that's the opening of the list item. And I'm going to close them, copy, paste, paste, and paste. I'm going to close them with a closing LI tag. So this is what we're going to want them to look like, and that's an extra one. So now I have an index that's got a dummy sort of stand-in short list of presidents before we write the Jinja code that's going to bring that list in dynamically, right? So to test this as a template, I'm going to leave it like this. It has no special Jinja stuff in it except for the way it's bringing in my CSS. And yeah, that's it for now. Now, what do we have to do to the route? The decorator stays the same because this is the top of the server or the top of the app. As the top page, it's just a slash and nothing else. The name of the function could be anything, but index makes sense because it's the top. And we are not going to return, these are gone, right? So that's not what we're going to return. So what will we return for a template? What we always return, if we want to return a template, is we call this function that comes from Flask render template. And I'm taking that space out. You know what else I just noticed? We have an old thing inside our other route function. We're not using that anymore. That is from a previous testing version of that function. So that line 22, I'm taking that out now. So our other function is stripped down to this. That's the function that we finished in the previous video. Finished it, except we left a little trash in it. I just took the trash out. This one, not quite done, because what do I need to do? I need to put the name of the template. We just made the template, right? And if you look over in our list, we're in our example project, and templates are in the templates folder, and we have that index template there. But back into our app. Okay, so our template is named that, and right now we're not passing in any values to the template, so we don't need anything more than this to be returned. So we'll save this, and then we'll go to our old previous ugly version, and we will reload. And because we have a template, it now looks like this. And the links that we have in there are going to do the same thing they did before, but now when we return to the list, we are returning to that template that we just made. Okay, so far so good. Step one is to figure out what do you need to get back in the app. Right now we're on the template, index.html. But back in the app, what are we going to need to bring in to this template? So we are going to need a president's name, right? So I'm going to remove the name, and I'm going to put in a double pair of the curly braces, right? So in here, we're going to be writing the name in some way, all right? Not as the word name probably, but we'll see. And then we're going to we have to replace the value of an href. And we've already done that, haven't we? Yes. When we replace the value of an href, that's inside the app, not external, like the Wikipedia page that we went to outside the app, but internal, we are going to need this URL for. So I'm going to copy just the first part because you know it's not going to be in static, right? This is something we're going to get from the app. So no static. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to bring it down in here. And I'm going to close the parentheses. And I'm going to close the double curly brackets. All right, so I'm going to make some space. And what I want you to think about, because I'm trying to help you understand how to build your own, you're going to have this structure, but what is going to be inside the parentheses? You have to somehow get this, and you have to somehow get this. But this is not a name of anything that's real over in the folders, in static or anywhere. This is what in the app? It is part of a route. So this president 2 or president 3 has to be associated with the function that comes after a route. And so we need to take a look at what that is in our app. So what we are aiming at is this. So maybe we'll just copy that and bring it in, or maybe we'll just keep it in our mind, right? So the function is named president, and we have to bring in the value as num. And this is the part we never did before. We never had to handle this variable number that's coming in. We never had to handle that before in a template. So that is a new thing. Now, let's look at our president.html from when we said, hey, go to the index. And remember that we said when you go to the index, you're going to the function. So you have to have the name of the function. So we can think, okay, this function is named index. This function is named index. So the one we're working on now to go to this route is president, okay? And it has to be inside quotation marks. So I'm going to start in here like this. Yeah, but what about the number, right? That variable num. How are we going to get that in here? And that's the trickiest part, okay? So we have to have something that comes after president that gets the num for us. So there has to be a comma after the name of the function. And then the variable we're bringing in is num, and after this, we don't have what it is yet. Okay, so that remains to be worked out, just like name remains to be worked out. But at this point, we know what we need to bring from the app. We need to bring the president's name coupled with his number. So we have to get both his number and his name and send them to this template. Okay, so what I need is a pair of things. I need what number is his presidency, and I need what is his name, the president. So I need those two things as a pair, right? I need them to come in to my template as a pair. And while I could write everything about that down inside my route function and say, oh, make me a list and put pairs in it and then send the pairs, I can actually do that before that function because then it will run only once. If I put the whole thing inside the route function, it's going to have to run every time that page is opened. So I'm not putting it there, I'm going to put it here. And let's make a little comment for ourselves. All right, and we'll start with an empty list, and we'll name it pairs list so that we remember what it is. And there we go, there's an empty list. Now, we need to just write a function that gets the number and the president's name from the dictionary that we already have, or rather from the list of dictionaries, and that is this list, right? So we've got that. We don't have to make anything new, but we have to make this list of pairs. So since we've got a list, what we can do is we can have a loop, right? So we can say for president in pres list, right? Because each list item is a dictionary that is one president. We can append to the pairs list, right? So stick a new thing inside it. And what are we going to append? We're going to append two things and we want them to stay together. So what's a good way to do that? We could make another list inside with the number and the president's name. Or we could make it a tuple, which is what I'm going to do. And it's not going to be X and Y. It's going to be a key from a dictionary, right? Because we're going to look at each president's dictionary. Inside each president's dictionary, there is a key for the presidency, which is the number, and there's a key for the president's name, which is under president. And if you've forgotten, so we're going to get this key first and this key second. so that we get 1, comma, George Washington, and 2, comma, John Adams, whoops, and 3, comma, Thomas Jefferson, and so on. So if I'm looking at president as the value of each thing that I'm looping as I loop, right? Then that is the variable that's holding the dictionary, and this is my first key, right? And my second key will also be in president, because that's the dictionary. And the name of the president is in the key president. So if this is confusing to you, remember that the parentheses at the start and the end inside the parentheses that follow append. So this set of things is a tuple, which you can look up. It's a Python structure that's a lot like a list, but not quite. And this is one dictionary key, and this is the other dictionary key. And if you're wondering why the dictionary is called president here, it's because that is the variable of the moment in my for loop. So if each dictionary is called president as we loop, then this has to be president. But the keys are always the same names inside the dictionary, right? So this is going to get us a complete list of 45 pairs. And why have we made that list at all, right? We are going to use this now that it's done. This is the whole loop. All it does is fill up our list, and after that loop is finished, we have pairs list no longer empty. I'm going to copy that from there. And where do we need it? Why were we building it at all? What did we want that for? We wanted it so we could pass it as a variable, as a value into the template. So this is what it's called here, pairs list. But we need to say, what are we going to call it over in the template? And we can call it the same thing. Or we could call it something a little shorter, because it's going to be a pair, right? It's going to be a pair. It's going to be a number and a name. So I'm going to call it pair over in the template, even though here it's called pairs list. Okay? And let's see. Oh, pairs. Pairs would be better. Pairs. Right. Yeah, let's call it pairs. So I'm going to save that. And then we need to look at our index. So we're sending it pairs. Now I need to figure out, where am I using pairs? Well, I'm using it, but pairs is 45. What we're looking at here, this is 1, and this is 1. And how many list items am I going to want? I'm going to want 45 list items. Oh, I need to put the list items in a loop. I'm not going to have these. I'm going to have just one, and it's going to get written 45 times, because I'm going to have for pair in pairs. Okay, but I'm in my template. So do you remember how the Jinja templating language allows us to write Python within the template? Yes, you do. Okay, where is my curly brace and a %sign? And then to close it, because we have to close it before what we're going to write. So %sign and curly brace. So right now, and notice these are single curly braces, because with the %sign, anyway, it's like this. This is beginning a Python for loop. And what's it going to do? We brought in pairs, which is 45 pairs. So for each pair in the list of 45, we are going to write this. And don't worry, we're going to fix this and this in just a second, but let's not forget, we have to close that directive in a template. So I have to say, I think it's end 4. Let me look that up. Okay, I just went away and came back, and for is correct, right? So if we start a for loop inside a Jinja directory in a Flask template, we have to tell the template, we have to use a Jinja directive to say, now I'm done with the for loop, or else it would just keep going, right? Because it's not regular Python, it's the special templating language. So this is the for loop, and it is now going to do this once for every item inside the pairs list that we brought over from our app. But we still have to do something with these guys. So let's do this one first, right? If pair is a tuple, one tuple, and a tuple is almost like a list. And a tuple, trust me, a tuple can have its items brought out using indexes, just like a list. So if I want the second item in a tuple, what do I need? I need pair second item, pair 1. So for num, I want the first item, and that would be pair 0. And I don't need quite as many spaces as I've got here. And I don't need quite as many spaces as I have there. Close that up just a little. And now what you're looking at is one line of HTML with variables inserted into it using the Jinja templating language. There will be the president's name. And here, inside the href, inside the A attribute, making this a link, will be the number that is that president's presidency. So let's see, is that everything we need? I think so. Let's run it. So we reload. Look at that beautiful thing. But does it work? It works. Does it work for everybody? It works. Let's test a couple more people. Let's try some presidents you've never even heard of. All right. Let's try one more just for good measure. You might have heard of him. All right, return to the list. One more thing I want you to understand here, and that is what happened when this route was sent to the server as an HTTP request. Well, what happened was the server said, I'm running a Flask app. This is the route for slash, right? This is the route for slash. And when I receive that as a request, I'm going to return a template, this template, and I'm going to send with the template this value pairs, which is holding the list of the 45 pairs. And in the template, as the template and the value of pairs is sent back, the template runs this Python, runs this for loop, and constructs these LIs out of this code. And the reason I'm emphasizing this is I'm going to now view page source and show you what actually got written into that page. So we will do a view page source, and what I want you to see is what was written. Our for loop happened right where my cursor is here, and it wrote this, and then it looped again, and it wrote this, and it looped again, and it wrote this, and it looped again, and it wrote this, and so on and so forth, all the way down to our current president, and then the loop was finished, and it went back to the regular HTML. So it's important to understand what's actually happening between the Flask app and the template. What we just did here, I saved for last because I know it's ugly. And I know as a beginner with Python, this is hard for you to wrap your head around, or I wouldn't be surprised if it were hard for you to grasp this on the first try. But that's why I saved it for last, and I wanted to walk through it in detail. Now the good news is the app is now done. We did not put all the president information in our template for this demonstration for this video, okay? The complete template for president.html you can look at here, and you'll also see that we split off the top and the bottom of the HTML file into its own base.html. That is not covered in this video. That is in this resource for you to look at if you want to. But index.html is here, and more important, president.html is here in its entirety with all of the variables filled in, and also these Jinja directives that we talked about in the last video. These two things are also pretty cool, like the for loop, okay? These are conditionals, so there's an if, an elif, and an end. There's no else there. And this one, there's just an if, and you see we have the end if the same way that in index we had to have the end for. So for any questions you have that have not been answered in the videos, or stuff that's unclear to you, that's still unclear, please come back to this resource and see if you can, between the videos and this text, make a Flask app for yourself that works perfectly with two different templates, and starting from a CSV with a lot of rows in it, and you turn that into a set of web pages with just two different HTML templates.